morning. I'm out and about this morning trying to get a head start on my scouting for the day because we do have something to keep us busy around home, at least through early afternoon. Looks like someone's already picking some corn first thing. First thing I noticed hopping out of the truck to look at some beans is that there's a minimal amount of dew this morning, so should be able to fire up here by 10 o'clock, I'd say. We are here about 5 miles north of our main farm. We've got 100 acres of those Pioneer 3-1 Enlist beans, and then on the south here we've got 45 acres of a Bex 3-5 Extend Flex bean. I really doubt that the Bex bean is ready just based on the maturity difference, although the 3-1 should definitely cut based on how the rest of them went the other 2 days. Really just checking these out of principle. I'm fairly confident that they will cut by this afternoon. Yeah, those are already 16% moisture, maybe 15, which means by the time we get up here, they'll go through. An additional consideration when scouting is just looking at how many green pods there are on these plants. There's green stems, there's green leaves, not a ton of green pods, so I'd say we'll be up here this afternoon. Of course, we also have some green water hemp out here. Water hemp crop has been very strong this year with the dry weather. Not too impressed with our herbicide performance on our soybean side of things. Here are those Bex 3-5 maturity bean. They were all planted the same day, just not the same bean. Very tough, not really wanting to pop loose. Big beans and dry, actually probably drier than the Pioneer beans over there, which is surprising. Logistics are going to be a consideration when we come up to this farm. If we're cutting here, we'll probably go ahead and see if we can get these to run through after that. Even if there's a few green ones, as long as we're not shooting them out the back, we're sending them to the elevator. Moisture is not a concern other than just getting them to test and not getting docked. I think these will get a shot today too. Combine saw a little more action yesterday, so higher chance that there's broken sickles or guards. Looks good. That's surprising. Dad finally agreed with me that it's a good idea to probably put some air in the duals on that combine, so we're going to bring it over here to the big air compressor, fill them up this morning. The front duals all had about 22 pounds in them. Moved them up to 28 or 29, which should help with the weight of the corn head here when we start moving it down the road. My, look what the cat drug in. Hey, buddy.
Hey, guys.
You see Mort go in the combine? He's going to the field to cut beans.
Okay.
Buddy, there goes the combine. Look. How's it look?
One busted.
Guard or sickle?
Sickle, upside down.
Oh, of course. Oh, it's always the fun ones to fix. As opposed to helping Dad fix that, I'm gonna cut a sample in Katie's combine. It's about 9:30. I think these beans are plenty ready to cut based on the way they feel. And we're putting them in the grain bin, so we can technically start earlier because they'll blend out throughout the day into the bin. Are already running 11% first thing this morning. That's impressive. I took a completely new swath through the middle of the field. Plenty of green plant material out here. The beans aren't that wet though. If you told me they could be this green and test 11 to 12%, I'd tell you you're crazy, but that's the reality of the situation. There goes that moisture climbing up a little bit. 13, 13.3, 13.2. Sample could be a lot better. A lot of pods coming through. There are some green ones. Based on the moisture alone, it does look like it's time to get the combines running full speed. Dad just fired his up. He's gonna start cutting. I'm gonna do my due diligence real quick and make sure we're getting all these green beans and not blow them out the back. There's a few beans here and there. That's ground up by the rotor. That one either went out the back or it's just header loss. Probably header loss if I had to guess, because if they're running 11 to 12% in spots, they're pretty dry in those pods. They pop out easier. So you're never gonna get them all, unfortunately. But I don't see any green ones out the back. You all may have your own opinions. I'd appreciate it if you voiced them in the comments. I'd rather see the pods in the grain tank than have beans sitting on the ground behind us. So gonna keep running similar settings. We got the rotor moving really quick first thing in the morning, just in case there's a lot of moisture on them, which there's not. We're gonna put the hammer down. Those are some big old beans in there. First thing this morning, we're gonna wrap up this short 60 of Asgrow 33XF3's first field we planted. In terms of planting date, it has good yield potential, but this ground is very drought prone. The topsoil is decent, but it has a gravelly subsurface, which is why you see these water wells out here, and this is an old gravel pit to the south, meaning it needs a lot of rain during the season, and it didn't get it, especially in August when the soybeans are really desperate for moisture. So I don't think the yields are going to be anything too impressive out here. We're going to move about a half mile to the east and cut some more of these same beans, assuming nothing bad happens here in this field. What are you running your rotor speed and threshing clearance at, Dad?
Clearance is 10 millimeter and 50 on the tiller speed.
You run it 1,000 on the fan, 12 and 5 on the chaffer and sieve.
1,050, 1,060 on the fan.
I really don't know where the other combine operator is. She was supposed to be here like 30, 45 minutes ago. Never know when Katie's gonna show up. Never mind, she was just hiding on the end, waiting for me to get over here. She's here, everyone, don't worry. Looks like I've got a date with the grain cart. Field's all going to the bin. Combines are going to dump the last of these beans on the cart. We're going to move about half mile to the east and start cutting some more of them. There's the remainder of that last field. There you have it. On arguably drier ground, those 33XF3s just made 77 bushels an acre, out yielding anything we've cut by 3 to 5 bushels so far. Had to get out and help Katie with her combine. She got a full tailings error up in the cab. Usually it's this thing. I don't see how that'd be an issue because typically weeds like Huckleberry cause that. There's not any weeds in this field. Dad thinks the issue was that the chaffer was set too far open. It was all the way open, which means it really wasn't doing any chaffing. Obviously, we have a lot of harvesting to go, but those were our best beans so far. Asgrow 33XF3s making 79 bushels an acre dry. Tested about 11 to 12% on the monitor, so if we'd cut them at 13, they would be 80 bushel beans. We're just to the north of the field we just completed. You can see we're south of the main farm, about 3/4 of a mile. That's where these beans are going right now. Before we cut the last of these very impressive Asgrow 33XF3 soybeans, I do want to talk about something that Dad and I stumbled across the other day when we were scouting these beans for harvestability and maturity. We found an elusive 5-bean pod. On most soybean varieties, a majority of your pods are going to hold either 3 or 2 soybeans, and in higher yielding scenarios, you may see 4-bean pods. What you very rarely find is a 5-bean pod. As a matter of fact, I've been full-time on the farm for 5 or 6 years now, and I've walked a lot of beans and I've never once come across a 5-bean pod until a couple of days ago. I didn't happen to be filming that day, but I did have my cell phone. I took a picture of the bean and Dad holding the bean for verification that it did in fact happen. It's not like it's impossible to find a 5-bean pod. I would equate it kind of like a 5 or 6 leaf clover. They're there, you're just not gonna find them that often. In terms of the soybeans, I do think there is some variety sensitivity that causes that. Some varieties are probably more likely to put on larger pod sizes. And of course, I think if we were planting the beans thinner in terms of population, that probably also increased the likelihood that we'd find one. We finally found one. We'll probably keep our eyes open because it was kind of neat to see. And these beans, they're doing all right. This seemed like an easier solution for extra bushels than sending a truck all the way down. There you have it. Second field of those 33 XF3s made 74 bushels an acre dry. Doing some fueling. Currently, Jeff is dumping the last semi from the previous field. Katie's gonna be moving the combine up shortly. I'm taking a draper because we're gonna be at that field we looked at this morning. We're back in our last field of these Pioneer 31 A73 Enlist soybeans. Just waiting on moisture confirmation from the combine before we move the other combine, the grain cart, and some trucks up here. You want a truck back here?
The semi.
So you want Chris to bring a 10-wheeler?
I don't know. What's left to bring up?
2 semis, a combine, grain cart, and a 10-wheeler.
14, so I don't know what to do. Wait another day. 15.
What does the average on your monitor say?
That's 12.7, but that's not the way the elevator's going to read them.
No, they may read them lower. The combine showing the moisture on the beans a little higher than my dad would like. He's cutting a sample load right now to take to the elevator in the semi. Everyone else is just in a holding pattern. I'm scouting a few more fields to add to our list over the next couple of days. These are close, but there's a lot of yellow out there, presumably some green pods as well. They will be on the short list, just not on the tomorrow list, I don't think. Hitting the ideal maturity and moisture level for soybeans is always one of the hardest parts about harvesting them, and probably other small grains, although I'm not experienced with that. If those beans up there aren't gonna cut, we've got these 35 T15 Pioneer beans, 3.5, so a little bit later in the group 3. They look like they'd cut, but so do those ones up there. 13 or 14%, not as dry as they look based on the plant maturity. I also just heard the auger fire up and see a semi parked right there, which means Dad sent that load back into home base as opposed to taking to the elevator, which most likely means they were too wet to take to commercial storage. Dad's out behind the main farm checking the beans I just looked at. I don't think they cut. There's obvious pockets that won't cut, but we can go around those. Be interesting to see what he has to say. I don't know if these would cut.
I don't think they will. Too many of these.
A lot of butter beans.
Yeah.
Judgment has been cast. We're all out of dry beans. It's time to shut down for the night. Alrighty folks, the weekend's approaching, but since it's harvest season, you know we're not stopping. Once you harvest a little bit, it's like a bag of potato chips. You can't just stop at one, you're gonna keep going. So if we can't cut beans, we very well tomorrow may be picking corn, which is highly likely, but we'll worry about that in the next episode. As always, I greatly appreciate every single one of you continuing to tune in and support the channel. Your viewership means the world to me. I'll catch you all in the next episode. Until then, make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and comment down below if you have any questions. You know I love to talk about farming. Have a great day, everyone. Peace!